Today, I am joined by an absolutely incredible artist. I am so excited to have you here. I have followed you for quite a few years, and I have to say that you're a huge influence on my work, and we will get into all of that, I'm sure, later. So I am so thrilled to introduce Gabe Lipper, or Gabriel Lipper, which, sorry, do you prefer?
Yeah, Gabriel is Gabriel. I usually introduce myself as Gabriel. Otherwise, people think my name's Dave. Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's why. Yeah, thank you. Nice to officially meet you, Liz.
Yes, lovely to meet
Some
you.
of my best friends are virtual.
That is so lovely. And it's just such an amazing thing, isn't it, to
Yeah.
have that connection that otherwise you just wouldn't be able to have. So it's amazing. Can just see is that your dog in the background? Just
Oh
wondered.
yeah, I do have a studio dog.
Oh,
He'll mostly just be getting into trouble throughout the episodes. So
cute. So if
that's
you're
all.
on YouTube, you can have a look.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just really wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. When I reached out to you, you just never know. You never, especially like, I'm an unknown artist and this is all very new to me. So I was so grateful when you said yes and really shocked and a little bit stressed, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm really pleased to have you. And for anyone that might not know who you are, can you just let people know like your website, your Instagram, where they can find you and they can have a look if they haven't already at your phenomenal work.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, sure. My name is Gabriel Lipper, and my painting website is artofgabriel.com, and my teaching website is 8paint.art. And then you can find me on Instagram at 8paint. And when I say 8paint, I mean the number 8paint.
Yep.
And then I guess on Facebook, Gabriel Mark Lipper, fine art, something really long and winded like that. But yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And
Yeah.
I'll pop all the links in the description and in the episode notes. So wherever you're listening or watching, if you look underneath, you'll be able to find the links. But I just like to give the audio links as well, because sometimes people don't quite know where to look for them.
Nice.
So fantastic. People can go and have a look at your work. And your work is phenomenal. I absolutely love it. And I'm really excited to get into talking about that and talking about your teaching. But what I love to ask people when they come on and find out, first of all, is what was your kind of like first experience of art and creativity that you can remember?
I mean, for me, art started as a very young child. My mom, she worked at it was called 3M, and they had a lot of paper. They made a lot of paper and different materials, and so she'd always bring back reams of. Actually, it started out as typed on paper, so I'd be
Oh,
drawing on the
wow.
back of reams of typed on paper, and that was yeah, and I loved it. So I started out as a kid. She was also kind of a stickler about TV. And
Okay.
although I resented it maybe a little bit at the time, I watched like two shows a week. So the rest of my time I
Oh,
had to fill with something, and it was a lot of drawing. I always had art supplies everywhere. I mean, she has a big part of this. She set the whole living room up for as an art table. So,
that's
but yeah,
amazing.
she was kind of
Wow.
only child. What's he gonna do? He's got to come up with something.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So even though you kind of resented that obviously as a child, like I can relate to that having kids and, especially now with their devices and what have you, you do find that that kind of can stifle creativity. And when there is that opportunity for them to be creative or to get bored and have to think, what can I do to entertain myself? It does give you them the opportunity to kind of find a different way. So it's almost like you have developed into this incredible artist and not having that like access to kind of just like, oh, I'm just going to watch TV has kind of created that in a way because you had to be creative, you had to find something to do to entertain yourself.
It's just so interesting this thing, and now I've gone the other way with it, and I have a phone, so I'm guilty. But it's so interesting the difference between being fed something passively, even if all you're doing is scrolling art,
Yeah.
It's still, you're being fed this passive thing. You're not actually initiating a creative thought. And so the idea of sitting there, and we all have done this, staring at a blank canvas or a panel or
Yeah.
whatever, and that's a different situation, isn't it? Now we have to do something. And as a kid, it's so easy because we just, you just have a crayon in front of you and you don't know until you realize that you can be fed, content passively. If
Yeah,
you don't know that, then you're active and you
absolutely.
start going. And I think for us as adults, it's more important than ever to start to retrain ourselves to get engaged and be alive in that space because what the social media and all these things, I mean, it's an amazing tool, that's why we're here, but
Yeah.
it's also it's the other too, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I really love that because, like you say, you watch children, and because they've not got any of that sort of societal views, they've not got, like you say, they have got the access to social media and not social media, but the internet. But in terms of their thought process when it comes to art and creativity, they're just so free and they'll just express themselves. And we kind of lose that as we get older and we struggle. And I think that's one of the things that you're really good at teaching. And we'll come on to that, I'm sure, later. But finding that kind of way of expressing yourself freely, which I think is really hard as you grow into adulthood.
We get so many There's so many labels that we don't even intentionally put on ourselves, but one of the most common questions that I hear from my adult students is, you know is it okay to? And we're doing art. So
Yeah,
is it okay to is such an interesting question because there's so much connected to that. Am I okay to do this? Am I allowed? What, and then what would people think if I, like, that's all in there. And that wasn't there when you were six, you know?
yeah. And that's kind of where like that reflection and that journaling side comes in as well, isn't it? Because, it's all very well that obviously creating and making the art is the thing, but actually there's just as much importance on stepping back, looking at our work, reflecting and asking those questions like, why are we asking, is it okay if I do this? Like, there's so many rules, but actually can we break the rules? What happens if we break the rules? Why do we feel like we need to follow the rules?
But I've also learned, because that can be a rabbit hole in and of itself, the act of doing breaks through that. And so my journaling usually comes in the form of a visual painting or drawing or something. It's the act of actually making the art that answers, is it okay, right? Because if we do it, we'll find out almost 100% of the time, with the exception of maybe a material peeling off a board. But
Yeah,
95% of the time, it is not only okay, but it's exciting, it's fun, it's rewarding, it's fulfilling. And the act of doing it, I don't know if you've felt this, but when I'm in the process of painting, I'm not struggling. I'm asking questions, I'm debating, I might sit back and look, but I'm not, the doubts, the procrastination, all of that exists outside of the action of doing
yeah,
it. And then so the minute you're in the studio in action, then that goes away and we become completely engrossed. And that's the
absolutely.
thrill of it. Like,
Completely.
that's why we keep coming
So,
back.
yeah. And so how do you get started? Like if you are in that kind of procrastination stage and you are questioning and you're not sure, are there ways that you have that you can just dive back in to get into that kind of flow state?
Well, I think that's what hangs people up, is this idea of diving back in, right? I need, so many times I've heard the ones most common is, oh, I really should draw. Like,
Yeah,
drawing for a lot of people is this stigma. And
absolutely.
they say it with the word should in front of it, as if it was going to hurt them, or
Yeah.
as if it was going to be a negative. And it does. I just think, don't dive in, put your toe in. And I like to dive in too. Don't worry. I mean, I throw a lot of paint down, but but just staying in the act, it's as if, people go to the gym, and I'm this is where I'm guilty. Like, I'll go to the gym for a while, and then I'll be like, oh, I should really go to the gym, That's me.
Yeah.
But for art, it's kind of the same. And art's so much easier. You don't have to get in your car. You don't have to do anything. If you have a studio, maybe you do, but you could keep a sketchbook at home I have a sketchbook in every car. So that's,
Really?
it's always there. And that you had mentioned earlier, well, not I guess in this episode, but the idea of 21 a week
Yeah.
is that's my little hashtag. So it's 21 a week. And for those of you who are trying to get back into art, Liz, you're into art. I can see that. But even for I do it too. So
Yeah,
it's
but
for
I
all of
need
us.
to do it as well. When you kind of have that, like sometimes like before your courses, you'll do like a free thing and you'll push that side of it. And I always come back to it and think, oh, I really need to do that. And in fact, I was thinking about it today when I was writing the questions and sending it to you. I was like, it's just 5 minutes. Like even if it's just, I don't even do 3 5 minutes. I can just start with one 5 minute sketch. And it is so good when you do it, but it is one of those things that you do think like, oh, I should do that. But you
Right.
know that, like you say, it's not diving back in. It's just taking one simple thing, even if it's just a mark on a page. It doesn't even have to be like a representational drawing, or it can just be a scribble, just anything,
Yeah.
just to kind of loosen you up and kind of
And I
move
think also
forward.
there's mediums that are intimidating. Like paint
Yes.
can be messy. There's things if
Yeah.
you're not super comfortable with them, they feel bigger. So
Yes.
maybe, start with like an oil pastel. Like chalk
Yeah.
pastels can be dusty, but there's certain materials out or pens,
Yeah.
pencils. These things are accessible. Crayons, and they're right at arm's reach and they don't
Yeah.
make a mess. And if you kept them next to the kitchen, you could literally draw your plate after you're done with it, and it'd be great. It'd be beautiful, or not. It might be hideous, and that's still also
Well,
wonderful.
okay, so that's what I was going to say. So, what would you say to encourage people that would draw it and just be like, "Oh, this is rubbish," and just kind
Yeah,
of they want to give up straight away because,
right.
like I have this odd thing, like I can draw, like if I'm copying a picture or whatever, like I I can draw, but like if you put something in front of me, like that I'd have to do still life, or
Like this is
if somebody
serious. You have to
said
draw this now.
yeah,
Yeah,
or somebody said
yeah,
like, draw me an elephant, it would be
right,
like the worst drawing you've ever seen, and they'd be like, you call yourself an artist. So
right.
what would you
But see,
say to
then
that?
there's that, and that's that whole dialogue of when we're in this creative process, there's a huge part of us that's fighting with us, I mean, we're fighting that creative process the whole time because of the imagined dialogue we have with our critic.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
it's so deadly. I mean, we all do it.
Yeah. So if people kind of, you touched on your 21 a week. So talk to us about what that is and kind of
Right.
like,
I said it, and then you're like, oh.
yeah.
So it's right. Three 5-minute sketches, and you're going to find if you take 5 minutes on a sketch, it's not going to be good. It's just
Yeah.
5 minutes is a very short amount of time. Give yourself the permission to go buy a sketchbook. It doesn't have to be anything special. Don't make it special. Get it a paper crappy sketchbook,
Yeah.
um, so that you don't think needs to be important. And then you do a 5-minute sketch. And sometimes I'll do another one right on the same page, or three or four. It does, that's not the point. The point is
Yeah.
the action. And so you do three a day. That's 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And if you do three a day of 15 minutes, let's calculate about how much art you're committing to there.
Yeah.
It's 21 a week.
So it's a
And
lot.
yeah, that breathe in, breathe out. Like you breathe in, now out comes three sketches.
And it doesn't
And
matter. And the fact that you've kind of put that time limit on it, it just that takes the preciousness away. It's not going to be great anyway, because you're
right.
never going to get like an amazing piece of work in that
Well,
time.
here's my rule about
Act
the
of doing it.
21. Yeah, the 21 is the thing. You're looking for this number, and it's an assignment. It's amazing how busy we are. How many 15 minutes a day do we actually waste? But
Yeah,
we don't have time for this 15 minutes in our life because somehow we've relegated art to less important than when it really
yeah,
feeds us and our families. It feeds everybody. When you're a creative person
absolutely.
and you have that creative energy and you're not accessing it, it does it comes out in other ways, and they're not necessarily positive. So having that creative energy and having a channel for it is really powerful. And so the idea of 21 keeps you in this repetition. Now, if you want to, at the end, if you hit your 21 and you want to go back into one of those or two of those and drag them out for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, that's fine. But the 21 is the mark.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because if we start with a 10-minute or a 15-minute, well, I could just work a little bit more. Well, now we're working for an hour or whatever on this one piece, and it doesn't give us that. We're not getting flexible. We're
Yeah.
You want this openness to just be able to observe or imagine and play. And it's so easy to tighten up. It's so easy to get critical. And so that's why the 21. Hit the 21 first, and then you can spend more time. And you probably will eventually because you're building those muscles. You'll hunger for more.
Yeah, and I love that you talk about play because I think that's like it's such a key point because we get so wrapped up, especially if you're like when I first started, because I've only really come back to art for about last sort of 5 or 6 years, so it's still kind of quite fresh. And it wasn't until I started finding other artists that I realized that people work on more than one piece at a time to kind of keep themselves fresh, to keep so that you're not getting in your head with this
Yeah.
one piece. And I didn't realize that. And actually, that's kind of so refreshing. And also, like, it just highlights that kind of play element because we get so in our heads about one thing and it's got to look perfect and all the rest of it. And when we can get out of that and find ways, because it's really hard to do that because you are in your head. So finding ways like that, having the 21 a week, or having various canvases or sketchbooks or art journals or whatever it might be that you're working on and you can rotate, it keeps you fresh and it allows for that kind of like playful element to come through. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about removing obstacles.
yes,
That's really
100%.
it. It's this psychological obstacle. If you're working in multiples, which is a huge thing for me, what happens is you get stuck on a piece, and if you go into the studio or your space, wherever you work, and I'm gonna work on this for two things can happen. I'm gonna work on this for 2 hours today, or I have an hour. It's precious. I'm gonna do this, and you look at it and you don't know what to do, and you're sitting there in your chair, and you're like, or maybe you're just angry at it. It doesn't work. You're stopped. But if there's another piece right next to it and another piece, one of those is going to call you in. And then you're in action again. You're in motion and your hour's not, being wasted. The next thing you know, you get to a stopping point here, but you've learned something from that and you look over and there's the answer over here. So keeping things moving. And if you don't know what to paint, that's when the crayons come out. That's when the pencils come out. Just grab something, you know, draw your cup. It's so simple, Or if you're more of an abstract and you have some space, get some paints out. I've
Yeah.
painted on the airplane, so it doesn't really take up a lot of
Really?
space. You just got to be able to, manage your mess.
Wow. That's yeah, that's a task, that is. That's
Well,
impressive.
yeah, they give you that little dinner, and
Yeah,
the top was plastic, and so I put a little. I did bring some parchment paper for my palette, and I had a napkin. I wetted that,
brilliant.
then boom, off we
Wow.
go.
Well, there you
So,
go. You can paint anywhere.
yeah.
Um, so what was I going to ask you? Oh, 1 second. It's just gone. I've got to
Well,
just
the paint, the plane
think.
thing.
Yeah, no, it was about working on multiples. And then, oh, that's what I was going to say to you. So again, like another thing that I've kind of learned is that sometimes it can take quite a while when you're in the middle of working on a piece. In fact, I've had a few pieces that I've actually left for like years, and then
Sure.
all of a sudden, it'll just, like you said, it will just call to you, like you'll just know what to do, and then you'll just go back into it. And I think that's really important because, especially, I think when you're a beginner and you're just starting out, you expect to just work on one piece from start to finish and for it to be at completion. But actually,
Yeah.
I wondered if that's something that you find that your work kind of just sometimes it just needs breathing space and then you'll come back and just randomly know what to do with it, even though you'd struggled for ages thinking it's not going anywhere.
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, Liz, because that's a big part of the process. We're expecting masterpieces because that's what we've seen, but it's this I say in my course, learning is not linear. We go
Yeah.
out this way, we come back, we go out this way, we come back, and so many students, in the Learning to See course, which is like the big course that I teach, I even have to warn them. I say, you're learning a lot right now. And through this lens, when you go back and look at a lot of your work, you're going to say, oh, that needs fixing or whatever. I said, wait, 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 because that's that immediate, like, this is everything's wrong kind of thinking. And yes, there's pieces you're going to bring in, and they do. They adjust their pieces. There's something they'll be stuck on for years, and then boom, the piece lands. A lot of that comes down to composition and bigger ideas that maybe we haven't completely grasped. And so yeah, and that happens and it continues to happen for me too. I'll sit with work that has been, I usually put it over in the like, there's something there category,
Yeah.
and it can live there for years. And then I'll come in and within 5 minutes, there, I get it. And then the next day, a client buys it. And it's astounding to me because they've just been sitting there rotting. No one's even looked at them. And then,
It's just
you do
something.
have, you get the answer.
Yeah. And I think, again, like that also comes down to like our learning and our the way we evolve. Because, again, like when we want answers straight away, we want to be able to get to where we feel like we want to be straight away. And obviously that's not going to happen. And you go into, I think people go into courses, and I know I've done this, and you expect to kind of go through the course and then by the end, like be this amazing artist. But
Right.
actually, sometimes it can take years for some of those concepts to really drop, or, like, so
Well, they continually evolve too.
yeah,
I have
yeah,
students who retake some of my
exactly.
courses, and the second time they've taken it,
Something
it's a new
else.
course for them because they're at a
Yeah,
different place. And so
yeah.
the understanding, they understood this nugget here, and now it's like, oh, put that on
Yeah.
top and, see what
Absolutely.
happens.
That's it. It's that kind of like layering, isn't it? That it's like you can only take on the knowledge that you're ready for. So then
Right.
next time that you access that course or like another component, it just layers on top because you're ready for that extra information almost. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. And I think that's the piece of when that work isn't quite working for you, or there's just something that drops in at some point, and then that allows that piece to kind of evolve.
And I've seen that, well, obviously I've seen that in so many students' work, but I've seen it on my journey. I mean, the whole journey. I started with classical training, and the instructor I had was excellent, but he was very dogmatic about his approach. It was almost like the Marines of art. So, classical, classical. And
Yeah,
his opinion around art was that that kind of realism was truth. If it deviated, he thought, Cezanne was the devil. Like he was, if it deviated from that perfection, it wasn't, it wasn't good.
right.
He had
Yeah,
these, and so as a I mean, I was young. I was right out of high school. That did kind of get into my head. And before that, I had been pretty free and loose, and it kind of, I think it stifled me a little bit. But it also gave me such amazing tools. So I've spent the rest of my life pulling that apart. And what I realized along the way was I didn't have to go quite that deep. Maybe I was a little impressionable, but it was so wonderful to be able to have the ability to see
yeah. And
and
I
to observe.
and that's given you, sorry, I interrupted you, but that's given you such incredible tools, because I wanted to kind of talk about that and about your kind of classical background and training, because like you say, you do want that balance, but by you having such that kind of like in-depth, like really focused training has then given you like the most incredible tools and knowledge. And like when I've listened to you talking on podcasts or interviews or in your courses, your free courses that I've taken and watched, like I could listen to you for hours because you've got such an incredible knowledge, and it's so interesting to kind of hear like all those different things. But then that's then allowed you to take what you want almost. Like I can completely understand how hard that would have been if you're being told like that's the only way. And actually then
Yeah.
at some point you're saying, but and this is where I was because I was kind of doing representational work and getting so focused on everything being absolutely perfect. And then I'm like,
And this
where
and it
where
builds
am
into
I in
that.
this?
Yeah, it builds. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt either.
Yeah, no.
And it builds that kind of like, am I doing it right? Fear.
Yeah,
If this is the end goal, if we start our process with this idea that it has to arrive there, which is usually a photograph,
yeah,
what are we doing? We become like a copy machine, a human copy machine.
yeah,
And so that's a great tool, but it should be a jumping off point for something bigger, something more, personal.
yeah.
And that took me a while to organize in my head. But one of
Yeah.
the things that I love about it now is I realize, I was never really a big fan of Picasso, but I read his biography, and I remember just thinking about what he'd kind of done. His father was an art instructor, so he had the chops early on. And then he almost immediately abandoned it. Like in his early 20s, he was like, enough of this. I'm
Oh,
out.
okay.
And he started tearing it apart and tearing it down. And it made me realize that I would like to give people this opportunity to have those tools, to have access to the tools you need, but also to recognize immediately that you want to go further rather than going down this rabbit hole and then now we do this and now we do this. Like, I have to learn the fundamentals first and I have to master them. Then I'll be allowed, it'll be okay to move on to do this. And I think that's stifling. And for most of us, we just don't have that much time.
Yeah,
That's not how our lives work anymore. So the idea of being able to really get to the distilled down version of what it is that you want to discover.
yeah.
I think that's what it's about.
I think that's incredible that you're able to take your kind of learning and your journey and be able to give us like that kind of course and teaching so that we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. We can learn what is important and the fundamentals so that you can. I mean, your course is called Learning to See, isn't it? So it's all about
It
observe.
is very fundamental. I want you to be able to see the world and understand how it visually works. Like when we
Yeah.
look around, what if you could make sense of it all and be able to paint or draw it? I mean, it's almost like there's physics involved, and it doesn't have to be this kind of big, heavy thing.
Mm,
It can be fun. But I also feel like there's a lot of artists out there who are painting in a specific way not because they've chosen it necessarily,
mm,
but because of they're painting from their limitation. They're painting because this is as far as they think they can go. Oh, I can
yeah.
never do that, or I don't understand that, so I can never do that. So I'm going to paint this, and it's rough because the idea of creativity is that we get to explore and stretch and break. And so the idea that we're being creative, but we're creating only here instead of from the like a breadth of knowledge, that makes me uncomfortable. I want you to be able to have access to everything,
Yeah.
and then start to pick and choose who you are as an artist.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you being able to give people the tools to do that is just fantastic. I think yeah, really, it's kind of like the best of both worlds, isn't it? To be able to take
That's the
the,
goal.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
and that's
you can
amazing.
see I'm all over the place here, so there's definitely, maybe a little
I don't think
ADD.
you are, but
Okay, okay.
not at all. Like everything is very cohesive and you can tell that it's yours. I love like when you create, you somehow carve your figures and your subject almost out of the negative space. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yes.
And it's just incredible to watch because I just don't know how you do it. Like how I suppose because you've obviously been doing it for a long time, but like to be able to know where your shapes are and paint around them to create it's just amazing. And seeing them come to life is just it's insane. I just marvel. Like every time I watch you paint, I just think, And the other thing is, you often do it whilst talking. How?
Well,
How?
well, I didn't get a lot of chance to talk when I was younger. It was by myself. So
Yeah,
it's just
fair enough.
all flooding out now.
Okay. But do you not
Okay.
find it hard to concentrate? Because I know when I'm painting, like I'm so in flow, like I can't even listen. Like if I was to put a podcast on or a conversation, I'll suddenly realize after like maybe half an hour, I've not heard anything of what's been said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if you kind of can relate to that or how you can talk whilst you're creating.
I think that comes down to the idea that I have the mental critic too. You know, we
Yeah.
all have this, is this okay? Is this right? Am I doing it all right? And so if I'm having a conversation with someone who I enjoy, or even just talking through my process,
Mm.
it segments, it turns off this voice over here. I've got, you
Okay.
know, if a podcast or music is on, I'm able to absorb that, and it interrupts the inner critic. So
Okay.
that's what I think that's where it comes from.
Oh, okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah, because I'm
Yeah,
just completely switched off. Like, don't talk to me because I can't concentrate. Like, I have to be
yeah,
in
yeah.
complete silence. But so that's really interesting.
It
Um,
goes back and forth. There's days when I sit in complete silence and I don't even realize it. I don't even
yeah,
know that there's no music. You know, it's just
yeah, I'm a bit like that. When you're just completely in flow, you're so in it, you just don't even notice what's going on around you. And like you say, you just
but
sometimes.
I have also surprised myself, you know, doing a demo for class and several. I'll do a demo and it's my best work. And it's because it's just I'm under this window of time. I'm talking to people who I respect and, you know, hopefully I have something to offer, you
You
know, so
absolutely
I'm
do.
leaning in.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's so interesting to me because that's when it's just almost like dump it all into what you're doing right now, and it's very focused
Mm.
it's in a different way. But
I'll have to
yeah,
try. I
yeah,
wonder
I
if
mean it's interesting,
it
you know,
might work.
it can work. It can
Um,
work. The other thing that I do, this goes back to the 21 a week, is I'll take my sketchbook out, and people are nervous about this at first
yeah.
because you know, it's going to be garbage. But I've been doing it for a while, and it's getting better. And so I'm a little bit. Actually, as I get older, I feel like sometimes it's harder to go out with a sketchbook because everyone has their phone. You know, what's this, well, you know, archaic.
Weird.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't want to
And
say
when I was
weirdo because
20,
you're
it was
not,
cute.
but
You know, everyone was like, "Oh, look at the cute 20-year-old with a sketchbook."
yeah.
But you know, but I still do it. And that act of being surrounded by, you know, your environment, immersed in the environment and still drawing. You know, I used to go to parties with a sketchbook and still have conversations with people. And yeah, I was in the corner, and there was only some people would talk to me, but it was, you know, it's who I am.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Good
Oh,
stuff.
brilliant.
You can edit
Yeah.
that out. Oh man,
Yeah. No,
too
no,
much? Did I share too much?
no, that's got to stay in.
Okay.
Just got this vision of you, younger you,
Yeah,
like, university kind of like
yeah, yeah.
drawing people. It was like, who
You
is
meet
that?
the right people that way, right? Like if someone comes
Yeah.
in and they go, "Oh, what are you drawing?" You know, "Oh, how fun!" You know, then that's a
Yeah.
person that you can connect with. If you know the
Yes.
other person who threw a spitwad at you, you don't want to know them, right?
Absolutely not. Yeah. Oh, that is actually one of the things that I've kind of loved about being in kind of like memberships and courses is that community element of meeting like-minded people because it can be hard like when you are try or where you're an artist or you're a creative and you kind of are a little bit different to other people and it can be quite hard like and isolating if you're working on your own or you don't know like local people yet, that kind of thing. And
Yeah,
that is such a big part, I think, of offering courses and teaching
yeah.
because having that element of people who can show their work to each other, who can encourage each other and support each other. It gives you so much encouragement and having like a mentor or a teacher who's also like commenting or supporting you. So is that quite a big part of your courses and workshops and things?
I mean, it's a huge part of it, and it's a huge part of it for me too,
Mm,
because you know I live in a beautiful little town, but it's almost rural. You know, it's a small place, and so I have a couple of artistic friends, and there are artists in this community, but it's limited. now I meet people from England, France, Australia, Spain, South Africa. It's incredible. All over Canada. I have artistic friends everywhere, and I can call them my friends. I mean, one of my coaches, we've known each other now for years, and we talk all the time. We laugh. We share each other's work. I've never met her face to face, but I consider her one of my closest friends. So
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
pretty
That's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, it's so amazing. We're so
Yeah.
lucky now, for everything that, is hard about having social media and what have you. It is incredible that we have these opportunities to have conversations like we're having and meet people who are so like-minded and who do become really close friends and we can support each other. It
And the
does.
bravery too. People are posting their work and they're vulnerable, and maybe it's okay, maybe it's not. It's always okay, but
Yeah,
it's maybe not their best work, and
yeah,
they're still putting it out there, and you can be like, oh yeah, I have a dog like that in the back. I
yeah,
did. This
yeah.
feels. It's very assuring to see that there's a lot of us going through the same process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that I wanted to ask you about actually, because obviously now we have social media and, we have these incredible opportunities to be able to be visible and to show our work without necessarily maybe it being through galleries or, that kind of way that it had to be before.
Yeah.
And I wondered when you decided that you wanted to maybe like start teaching and showing up. Was that something that you found quite difficult, or was that something that was just natural to you to kind of just show up and show people your work and start teaching?
Well, I mean, for my story might be a little different because I started so young. I haven't had a job outside of art since I was 25,
Amazing.
and before that I was obviously pursuing art.
Yeah,
So it's a little different for me. And also the other thing about being, you know, 20 or whatever is you're just so ignorant. And so I was boldly walking in to these galleries like, look at this, and they'd be like,
yeah,
oh, great. I made a lot of mistakes and I didn't even realize I was making them. And that I'm grateful for because
yeah.
now it is a little harder to put yourself out there. But I've been teaching for a long time, and I used to just teach a small class in my studio, 10 people. And then COVID shut the galleries down, it shut my classes down, and I have a daughter and a wife. And so I took it online, and wow, it changed my world, it changed my life. And it also made it possible for me. Sometimes I'll work with galleries, but I'm not dependent on them.
Yeah,
And that's been really freeing and liberating.
yeah. I think I've heard you speak before about how obviously, you have got some galleries or you did have, and it's fantastic to have that. And it's just not something that you have to have now because there are so many opportunities. And also, there's that kind of intimate connection that you can have between you and the buyer that you wouldn't have if you were selling through a gallery. And that makes things so different. And also, it makes the process of then passing your work on, which can sometimes be quite hard to let go of,
Sure.
a really nice experience because you've met or the person that's taking it and their story and kind of how they feel about it.
It is nice. And I think there's also something to be said for, people who purchase out of galleries. Sometimes it's aesthetic, sometimes it's because they like the gallery owner, but everyone, would love to meet the artist. And now
Yeah.
we're, here. So that's nice. I appreciate it. Now, something like this piece here, that's going to maybe take a gallery.
Yeah.
Not everyone can move a 6 by 9 foot painting. Even though I do know people, do I know that many people? We'll find out. Uh,
Yeah.
so so there's times when the gallery is the perfect solution, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, definitely. It's not somewhere that I've got to yet, but you never know.
Yeah.
It will we
Well,
will
one thing to do
see.
too is just, we were talking in multiples,
Yeah.
starting even with just 10 pieces
Mm.
that are kind of coming from the same energetic space, so that you can set, maybe you set up 5 at a time, but you're working with this idea, a bigger idea, and it doesn't mean you have to stay there. At the end of that 10-piece show, you could throw that idea completely out and start anew and be a different person. But starting with a group of pieces like that, when you have, 10, and they feel kind of cohesive, whether it be by size or you're using some of the similar colors or whatever it is, taking those out into the world and you're ready. You have a show just sitting there ready. It doesn't have to be a gallery by any means.
Yeah.
It could be a coffee shop or a restaurant or a friend's boutique. Just sharing them with the world. It's important. It's important to do that and go through that process. And it's scary, but it's so rewarding.
Yeah. And I think that's like the key to everything, really, isn't it? Because everything is scary. It's scary to put yourself out online. It's scary for me doing this with you.
But here
Some
you
people
were.
are
You
really
called
not.
me up, and I was like, "Well, that's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
Thanks
thank
for looking me
you.
up."
It is, and but you've got to take these risks because if you don't, you don't grow. And I think that is such a huge part of the whole artistic process. It's even like we are saying about, COVID hit and then you had to take everything online. And as an artist, that's not really supposed to be part of what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to just be able to create, you know,
Yeah,
wander around doing our thing and maybe
I
showing.
think that's a great example of maybe sometimes how it works, and I don't know how we can fake that, but urgency, necessity.
Yeah,
Right. The necessity is the mother of invention. That was really what happened for me was I was like, I have to do something. And so I had to kick my class out of the studio. That I was
oh,
like, it's not safe here. You gotta go. This is before it was like legislated,
yeah,
but they had to go. And I thought, and then I was like, I can't give them their money back. I'm like, oh man, what can we do? I
that what
would,
I'm
but I
gonna do.
said, listen, how about this? Why don't I record this, or why don't I put it on, a Zoom call, and you can be in the comfort of your home, and we'll still do this together. And everyone, fortunately, was thrilled by that because
Yeah,
we were all kind of in the same boat. And then and I thought, well, oh, now I'm not limited by space, so I put it on Facebook, and I got somebody signed up from Georgia and somebody signed up from England, and I thought, what is this? It was so crazy.
wow.
I'd worked, with some online coaching before, so I had some familiarity with that. But it was just crazy when it happened to me. And
Yeah,
so I said, this is a thing. And instead of my first class being 10, it was 30. And from then on, I haven't looked back, and I've just been building on that, and it's been so wonderful. I love it. But it did come from a place of urgency, and sometimes I think we have to recognize that it's not going to, we're not going to someday get there. Life is
yeah,
constant. Life is greedy. It consumes us. Our kids, our spouses, our parents, all these things are constantly going to be competing for our time, the
yeah.
necessity for money, whatever it is.
Mm.
And we have to give this art of ours its proper place in the hierarchy of importance, and it should be pretty close to the top if you're a creative, because it's what fuels us, and it's going
Yeah.
to make us better people for the people we love. When I'm in the act of painting, when I'm doing the work, my wife likes me.
Yeah.
That helps. So I come home, I'm happy, she's
Yeah.
happy.
100%. I think that is such an important point. And it's so hard. Like, like you say, there are so many things. And especially me, like as a woman, as a mother, like everything's craving your attention. And it is so
Yeah.
hard. You feel guilty. Like how many times I've kind of like, oh, I'm going up to do some work or some painting or whatever, and kind of felt guilty about even saying it, let alone doing it.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah,
know,
my kid needs
oh,
this, I've got to get some dinner ready, and here I am, coloring. It's
yeah,
it's worthless. What am I doing? Who do I think I am? I mean, I've heard that so much, and the truth is though, there's something that's not being addressed.
yeah,
And if it's not being addressed, and if it's being pushed down, it rears it comes out in frustration, and you can feel resentment,
yeah,
and it comes through.
yeah,
We can't help ourselves. It comes through. So that's where giving it a priority, not because it's maybe important in the big scope of things, or at least I know it is, but we may not be able to get there right away, that it's
yeah,
important.
yeah,
But if you want to be selfless and continue to be selfless, which I think a lot of mothers, especially, but women in general, tend to be more so, remember that this is something that you're contributing to your well-being, which contributes to everything, right? It's good.
Definitely. It has a ripple effect. And I also think that it's really important for me, like having two daughters, that they see that I'm giving myself that time and priority because please God, when they have a family, I want them to have that same, I don't want them to feel guilty. I don't want them to feel resentment. I want them to follow their passion and be able to do what they want to do and enjoy it and do things that bring them joy, even if it's just for fun. It doesn't have to be a business. It doesn't have to bring money in. It could just be because it nurtures them or because it's just something that brings them enjoyment. And I want them to know that that's okay. And if it's not okay for me, then how can it be okay for them? So I think that's also a really important kind of thing to think about when you're worrying about taking time away from other people or feeling guilty. Actually, you need to think about not only what is it giving you and your family, but what are you showing them?
Yeah, what are we modeling
What are we
by
modeling?
taking some time for our
Yeah.
passion?
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that. I love
Yeah,
that.
and that also comes into kind of like taking the courses because again, like it doesn't have to be that you're taking a course because you want to become an artist that sells their work and therefore it's a business. It could just be that you're investing in yourself because you want to better your creativity, your way of creating art just because you enjoy it. It doesn't, and I think again, that's another thing that's quite difficult to say, okay, well, I'm gonna do this for myself. It's quite a big investment, and actually, I just want to do it because I enjoy it, and that should be okay. And I think there's quite a lot of people that will say, "Oh, I can't do it because, well, I'm not gonna make it back, or
I'm not going to make this money
money."
back from this course, so how can I justify it? And
Yeah,
imagine if we asked that about the piano lessons that we got, our daughter, or
yeah,
I mean, like, oh,
yeah,
she's playing soccer, but she's never going to make money as a soccer player, so
yeah.
football, I guess, over there, but it's like,
Football,
come on, come on.
ballet, all these. Yeah, I mean, I played the piano when I was a kid. I don't play it now.
Yeah, yeah.
I
How
went
much
to
money have
drama
you made
school.
playing piano?
Yeah,
It seems ridiculous when you say it that way, but that's what we're
yeah.
doing to ourselves, and you know,
And
it's
that's
hard.
crazy. It's absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. But that is the way that we think. And I think that's just something that I'd love people to kind of think about when they're looking at kind of these courses and workshops, because it is really important to give us that time like we would to our kids. So we've talked quite a bit about your Learning to See course, and you've got some other workshops that are coming up. So these are kind of, so you've got, so Learning to See is your big course, and then you
Yeah,
have
that's an
other
8-week
things.
course. It's hyper intensive. We cover a lot of different material that it gives you an overview of almost everything art. We even talk about figures and how to place them in space, but we also get deep into color, working in multiples, landscape. There's all of these things that we're touching on to give you like this, like I was saying, an overview of the tools that you might need or can choose to have and where you want to go with them. And there's a lot of different ways you can take that. And the idea is to build you a broad foundation, not a specific foundation in that
Yeah.
learning to see, so that you have just enough that you can really work with it. A lot of big art schools say, well, we want you to figure out who you are as an artist, but then they're not giving you any tools.
Mm,
So what if you want to be this, what if you want to paint a figure? And they might say, go draw a figure. Well, how?
yeah.
So we try to get into some of that. But the next course I have coming up is going to be my figure workshop, and I have a series of 4 to 5 summer courses that I teach every year, and they were initially designed so you take learning to see, and you would then follow up with these more specific courses. But
Okay.
I realized that a lot of people just want to focus in on different elements. So this one's going to be the figure workshop, and I think it
Okay. And
starts on the 13th
the
of
13th
October.
of the 13th of October,
Yeah.
I think we said.
Yeah.
And so you said it's a series of four. So the one that's coming up is the figure one. And what are the other ones that you have? Will
Well,
they,
the
will
other
they,
ones have passed. So this is the
okay,
last one for the year before learning to see, and that will
okay.
probably start in February.
So I was going to say, so that's February, and then you do these for kind of around this time.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah,
just,
and these are 2 week courses. They're intensive courses with a
okay,
lot of, I pre-record a whole bunch of content, and then we have a live Q&A on Fridays where you can submit your work throughout the week. I make adjustments to it. We talk about it. I do live demos. They're intimate groups. They're not these mega churches for art. They're intimate groups, and it's wonderful. And we get to go through this process together as a community online. And the figure workshop is extremely popular with my students because we really do focus on this merging of abstraction and representational through the muse of the figure. That's what we're working with. But
yeah,
people love that,
yeah. I think a lot of people,
me
it's,
included.
yeah, yeah. Well, you do it so well, and I did kind of want to ask, what was your kind of process in terms of going from, I mean, I know we touched on the fact that it was all very representational and you had to really work on pushing those barriers out and kind of changing the way that you thought about in terms of getting to that kind of abstraction. But what what was kind of like your process? Like, how did that evolve when you started deciding that you wanted to bring in these kind of like more expressive elements to your representational work, your figures and your portraits?
I went down that rabbit hole of realism and I was very accurate and I was doing, strong realistic work, which I still enjoy.
Yeah.
But what I realized was I was a little uncomfortable at the end of the day with these very almost static images when I thought about what I wanted to see in my home, what
Mm.
I want to live with. Do I want to live with that, nude standing on a stage with a staff? Not as much. Or a still life that's like carefully, colored in. They felt a little, yeah, like I said, they felt static, and I wanted to be more expressive. I wanted to, communicate the energy that I feel when I'm painting. I feel that even when I'm doing realism, but I
Yeah.
don't. It's not expressed. The end result wasn't satisfying to me, and it also seemed pretty generic. I didn't feel like I was in there. No matter how good I got at being careful and correct, I wasn't coming through in that process, except that I was disciplined. And
Yeah.
so I worked with a man named Clifford Wilton, he was a Bay Area expressionist. He's originally from England, and wonderful man. And he was very abstract. And he'd look at some of my work and he'd say, that'd be great if you would do that with a 2-inch brush, you know. And I
Okay.
thought, what?
What? What?
We started working together. It was called Abstract Tuesdays, and I'd set aside a day in the week to really just blow it out.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with that process. But then I also love telling a story. I love creating a narrative. And so I wanted to figure out how can I fuse these two worlds together, and that's been kind of the journey ever since.
That's amazing. I'm just sorry. I'm just going to close this because the sun's got quite low and that is just,
I have one up here that just hits me hard sometimes.
yeah.
So.
And I love that. I love the idea of just kind of going straight into the abstract. And then, so did that then just evolve because you really enjoyed it or
Yeah.
how did that, yeah.
Well, and I wasn't satisfied completely with pushing paint around either. Shapes and design, and there's some beautiful work. I have abstracts in my home that I've purchased over the years. So I love that aesthetic. But for me and what I want to say and how I like to create, it wasn't fulfilling to me to just continually put shapes on the canvas just because of the way I'm wired.
Mm,
I wanted more. I wanted to say something that connected to my world in a visual way and share, your piece in the background, there's a beautiful dancer there. That says something that resonates universally, and there's vitality and there's energy. So that was what attracted me to this idea of merging the two. And I think it just kind of started to naturally happen. I used to do my underpaintings pretty loosely, and then
mm,
I'd refine them, and I started leaving more and more and more of that coming through, and then that evolved into a complete a thing I call a playground. Um,
Yeah.
Nicholas Wilton, for those of you who know him, I worked with him for 3 years, uh, and he loves to play in that abstract world. So that was really wonderful for me too. There's just a lot of influences, but what I wanted to do was go beyond the abstract and bring the two together and do it in a satisfying way. One of the things that's frustrating if you're trying to do that realism and the abstraction at the same time, it seems like so much. It feels
Yeah.
overwhelming to have to learn all of these different things. And the drawing is something that gets in people's way. They struggle with maybe the face or something like that. And they want to put it in there. They want the both, but a lot of times the execution of the more realistic parts gets in the way, and it feels like it's interrupting the work.
Mm.
It's like here I have abstract. Now I'm going to put realistic on top. How did I do? And so, how do we merge that? How do we bring them together successfully and let the piece speak for itself as a whole? And that's the focus.
And that is, of course, what you do so well. And then obviously that is what you teach. And that's what influences me and that's what draws me to your work because that's where eventually I want to get to. And I can totally relate when you're saying, here's the abstract, here's the representational, I put it on top. How did I do? Because I started with the representational, then I was like, went completely the other way in a say similar way, like, okay, let's work with abstract now because I need to just be able to express myself completely loosely and then look at how I merge the two. And I think for me, the thing that I'm now probably just getting to start to be ready for is how do I carve those figures that I love drawing and paint. I don't love painting so much. I think that's the issue, but I have to learn how to kind of enjoy painting. But how do I
Well,
carve
and
those
I think part of
figures?
it is you touched on it. It's like, okay, I've learned this. Now I'm going to learn this. Now maybe I'm ready for this. And I
Mm,
think that's a stumbling block for a lot of artists because if there's an organic way, which there happens to be, to merge them right out of the gate, to build both of those skill sets simultaneously instead of saying, I have to earn my chops here, then I have to understand this, and then maybe I could do this. It's actually a more organic way of learning, and it is very fulfilling because now these things are just happening instead of this. Now I'm going to shift over to this side of my brain. Now I have to go back here. That's almost like you're living in a dualistic way when you're
yeah.
creating your work and you're shifting from here to here to here to here, and some of that's natural, but also it can feel polarized. And
Mm,
so if we learn how to put all of those pieces together at the same time, working with all of the ideas at the same time, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's just distilling it down into these elemental ideas instead of shifting from one to the other. Anyway, that's the process, and it's helpful.
yeah. I mean, it sounds incredible, to be able to have that process and be able to teach that so that people that do want, because there are a lot of people that want that balance between representation and abstraction so that you can
Yeah,
put
because we
yourself
want to say
in it.
something. We want to share more than a color or a shape. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, just the fact that you're able to show people how to do that. And like you say, without having those two opposites and just bringing them together, but learning to do it together is so
Right.
appealing.
And that
Um,
was what I missed too. I felt like this
yeah,
didn't have to hurt so much. This didn't have to take so much time. In some ways, I felt like it impeded me to have gone that far in
yeah,
because it took me a long time to pull my way out. So when I realized, hey, it's not like I'm trying to give you shortcuts, but there's a shorthand here it's a more refined way of approaching it. And I think the reason it hasn't been that available is because traditionally there was these two camps, and they were kind of almost divisive. You like learn, I'm an abstract artist. I don't care about that realism. That's for suckers. or I'm a realist artist, and that's not even art. That's the kind
Yeah,
of things I used to hear when I was growing up. And so, the idea that you could hold these simultaneously and work with them at the same time and think in a way that was, embraced all of that. It was something that I didn't have access to. And so I felt like I had to develop it.
yeah,
And I
which
see a lot of artists who are working in ways like this now, and it's an exciting time to be alive. But it had to come from somewhere.
and it's amazing that, you've been able to make that work for you and give that to so many people because it is something that so many what people want. So it is really exciting, and the fact that you've developed that is incredible. So your figure workshop, which is a 2 week course, would you say?
Yeah, it's a 2 week
2 week,
workshop,
2 week workshop.
built in the same way that my Learning to See course is, but 2 weeks. They still have access, or whoever signs up for it has access to all of the content for an entire year. It's recorded. I've been seeing people, saying lifetime memberships, and I kind of am skeptical of that. Like, how long is that?
Yeah,
Also, like, I want you to do the work. I
yeah,
want you to jump in there and actually like explore this. And I feel like I've signed up for a couple of things where it was a lifetime, and I don't even know how to log in anymore. I'm just like, I don't know
yeah,
where that went, but damn it, you know?
yeah,
So I do limit it to a year. And I think that's plenty of time to really go deep and get a lot out of it. I just had a student who went through the entire course again after, it was over, and was posting her new discoveries on the second iteration. And it was
yeah.
so impressive to me to see her dig in, work that course. And, I pack it in there. So it's more than 2 weeks worth, but we have the live calls during that time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think like that's such a good point about the lifetime access because I've done that so many times. And you
Yeah.
sign up and you're like, oh yeah, I can come back to it. And then you never do. And
Yeah.
actually having that time limit means that you will go back to it. And also, I think the other thing, and I think I don't know if we touched on this, but people tend to then revisit the course again. I think we did mention it, which if you have lifetime access, there's no reason to do that. And actually going
Yeah.
through it live and with other people, that is there's so much to be said for that, I think, as well, rather
I
than
have students who've taken my courses 3 times, 4 times. It's incredible. Like I was so surprised the first time someone signed up again for one of my courses, and I thought, but you've taken it. And then I realized pretty quickly that yeah, we were engaged. We have live calls. There's a different community. There's a lot going on that justifies revisiting
absolutely.
some of these ideas, especially when you're at a different space in your creative process. It's like you're seeing it through, a new lens or new eyes.
Yeah, and it gives you that motivation as well when you're doing it with other people to kind of like
Right.
really continue. So that's amazing. So I'll have all the links to that workshop in the description and the episode notes below, wherever you're watching this. But I think you mentioned before where can people find it if they want to go to have a look to sign up for the figure workshop?
Eight paint, the number eight paint.art is where you'll
Okay,
find it for all the signups, and you can explore the different workshops that are available through the summer for the next year or whatever. But yeah,
brilliant.
the figure workshop's coming up, and I'm really excited about it. It's one of my favorite workshops. I love the figure. I'm really passionate about that, and the way that this specific workshop is designed, it's a lot, but it'll be merge your figure with your abstraction, find the figure in the abstraction instead of carefully coloring it in.
Yeah, I think you've convinced me that I need to do this course. I've always wanted to
Oh,
do,
well, there's one.
yeah, I've
Good.
always wanted to do learning to see, but I've just not quite done it yet. I just didn't quite feel ready because it's a lot. You've got to be like able to kind of jump in but maybe like a 2 week, which is less, maybe that's a
You
good,
just dip your toe
like,
in, see if the
yeah,
water's
set your
okay. Then you'll be like,
appetite.
ah! Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
if anyone joins, I'll be joining you. And you're obviously we've talked a lot about figures, but there's a few other workshops. So you don't just focus on abstraction with figures. Do you do like still life as well? And I know you do
Yeah,
port.
yeah. I start in the workshop series after Learning to See, which is this all-encompassing thing.
Does that cover
I
all those
design
things?
these courses to specialize, like to take a deeper dive into each, not each, but many of the processes that I teach in learning to see. It's a deeper dive. But I also realize that there are times when you want to pull out and really zoom into something specific. So for example, the still life is very realistic, and it's a way to get people jump started into that realistic world and be able to see well and carefully and to understand the subtlety of color, how things work together, how they relate, how objects relate. And the still life, for a lot of people, still life, I'm not excited by that. But it's what I love about it is it's so non-judgmental. A still life doesn't tell you that you got the nose wrong. It just is.
Yeah.
And so it gives us so much freedom to really begin to see what's in front of us without bias or any kind of preconceived judgment. Oh, that's too fat, that's too thin. Those are they can get into our head a lot of these messaging that we are just not even aware of anymore
Mm.
when we try to approach a figure, and it messes with us. The eyes, the nose. We have judgments we don't even know about that exist, and so the still life cleans the slate for us, and it's really a perfect. It's how I started academically. It's a wonderful way to start. And
I
then
really
the
love
second.
that. Sorry. No,
Oh
I
yeah,
just,
sorry.
yeah, because like for me, like still life just seems so boring. But actually, like the way you've just explained that, it's like, yeah, actually, that really
Oh, and
makes
it's
so much
juicy. It's
sense.
you fall in love when you're doing it because you're really just present to this thing or things
Yeah.
and the way they relate. And I guarantee you, anybody who signs up for that course is going to have these amazing aha moments where they're like, "Oh, that's true for everything."
Wow.
It's like these universal truths that get distilled down to the still life, and it's wonderful. It's a really exciting way of learning, and people who do that, I think, jumpstart their drawing and painting abilities in a really solid way. So I highly encourage that. That's like one of my favorite workshops, just if you're going to start with one. But then we go to landscape, which is completely different. Like there's very little in the still life workshop that relates to the broad expanse of the world of landscape. So I do that. And we talk about atmospheric perspective and color and how those things are affected and how to bring things close and how to push things far away and composition. That's exciting. and
Very
and I live in
exciting.
a beautiful place, so that helps me. I also
Yeah.
love to travel, and I always bring a little travel kit with me everywhere I go. So there's some of that in there. And then the portrait workshop is again, it's like the still life on steroids because now we're dealing with a human face and a likeness, and I go through several portraits showing you different processes of how to get to not only the likeness but the essence of who somebody is. So that's really an exciting course as well.
It all sounds absolutely amazing. And I know we're really running to out of time, but there is I do want to ask you, so obviously a lot of what you do is teaching kind of the drawing side of it. So in terms of like tracing or projecting or getting people started where
Yeah,
to help them not feel so kind of it's such a daunting process. Is that
sure.
something that you kind of like encourage, recommend? Because I know there's like a whole like two camps about it. I do a lot of
Yeah.
digital drawing and I find that I just really, really enjoy that. And I personally I think that doing anything that can help you increase your muscle memory and take away that kind of worry or pressure of getting it right is really helpful. But I know that not everybody agrees with that and I just wondered what your kind of view is on it and if you encourage it.
Well, I think I totally agree with you. I think that what we're here to do is create art, and anything that starts to feel like an impediment or it sends you a message an I can't message needs to be discarded. And I've heard from so many students, oh, well, isn't tracing cheating? Or, these kind of things that we drag along with us. And when I started out, I would trace whole scenes out carefully,
Mm.
but good luck painting them, right?
Yeah,
It's difficult even then, even with that jump start.
100%.
Yeah, so thank goodness that I was able to at least get that down. The only thing about tracing that can be difficult sometimes is because we're so careful, we put all these lines there, then we feel like we slavishly follow them. And
Yeah.
so we can lose some of our gesture, some of our personality. But there's so much to be done there with color, form, composition, that tracing is wonderful as a jump start. If you're not a strong drawer and you're not confident in that, that should not stop your painting. And I definitely encourage you, projection, tracing, what have you. The whole point of the 21 a week is to keep that motion so that you can merge the two. And that's what I did. I started with hyperrealism, tracings, and then I also, at the same time, was drawing every day. So
Yeah.
letting that organic side eventually take over is the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I don't need to trace anymore because I can draw and I can see.
Yeah.
But the tracing actually helps you to see. It helps
Yeah.
you to see the shapes in an abstract way rather than what you think they're supposed to look like. So it's great.
Yes, that is such a good point. And I just wanted to mention that because I just think that, it can be such a barrier for people when we're talking about drawing. And, I know that, like you say, when you draw out the outlines, that does not mean that you're going to come out with this incredible piece of work at all. It does really help you to see those abstract shapes. So I think it's just like a really, really good point for people to just kind of know that actually it's not only okay, but actually it can be really helpful. So
Sure.
I think I really appreciate your kind of viewpoint on that. Thank you for talking about that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know, is there anything else that you want to kind of say or that we've not touched on before we finish off that because I had a load of questions. I've not even looked at them, so I've no idea what we've covered and what we
I feel like we
haven't.
did pretty well.
I hope so,
It was really
yeah.
good. Yeah. Thank you.
I hope so. I know that I do like to just kind of ask that what advice would you give to someone starting their creative journey, especially if they're like nervous about sort of getting started or showing their work? Yeah, what would you kind of say?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think my singular advice would be to do it, to continue to, and it seems simple, but it's like keep those art supplies in hand. Like I said, I have a sketchbook everywhere.
Yeah,
I have one, in the car because I would forget it otherwise, right? So then you get someplace and you're like, oh, you know what? I'd love to do a little sketch. We're on a hike. It's right there. So I have one at the house. I have way more than one, but there's at the
yeah,
house, the cars, the studio, keeping those art supplies accessible and then actively using them is the most important part of this. And
okay,
I do think, initially when you're getting started, if you feel, insecure about your process or you don't think you can do it, signing up for courses, things like that, it's a really great way to find that community, connect with other people who are in the same boat, and there's a lot of artists who
yeah,
have those misgivings. As far as showing your work, just building a little group that kind of is a bigger conversation than single pieces. When we start out and we say, well, here's the 7 pieces that I have, and they're all over the place. That's fine. I think you should explore it. But when you're going to come up with a show, kind of just bring it together, come up with a subject, whether it could just be as simple as a color. I'm going to base all of these works on the color red, and it doesn't mean they all have to be red, but you're going to see red playing a part.
mm,
Or maybe it's the size, they're all the same size so that they look really nice on a wall. Find some element that ties them together. And if it's the subject, but the styles are all different, maybe it's the size and the subject, but everything else is crazy. Just allow people to find that thread in your work when you're putting your first show together, and that really helps.
that's amazing. That's such amazing advice. Thank you so much. Like I know people will really appreciate that. And for me as well, it's like really helpful. So I just want to say thank you so much. This conversation has been incredible. You've just given us so much and so much knowledge and expertise. And yeah, you're just so lovely to listen to. And you can just take so much from what you share. And you're so generous with that information as well. So thank you so much, not just for me, but on behalf of like everybody listening. Thank you for your time and just being so
Thank you, Liz. I
open
appreciate
and
it. I
amazing.
appreciate you reaching out to me.
Yeah, thank you for saying yes. Thank you so much.